So the next option we have in here is mirror and array. We're not going to actually cover this because you're not going to actually be using this button like ever, and I'll show you why. So whenever you want to run a mirror, let's say I don't know, this was like a skewed cylinder, right? And I made some adjustments on one side. You know, these are going to be very sloppy adjustments, so just pretend they look good. So if I wanted to mirror this effect to the other side, all I'd have to do is press Alt-X and then run a mirror. We never really use the mirror and array functionality. It's just simply something I never bother using because it's just much easier to go in here and press Alt-X, and if we want to run an array, it's much easier to just click on Array V2. So yeah, Alt-X brings up this mirror gizmo. Now for mirrors, it's a little bit counterintuitive. If you want to mirror from this side over to this side, you choose the side you want to mirror from, like this. A little bit confusing at first. You'd think you'd select the side you want to mirror to, but it's not the case. You'll pick it up pretty quickly. You can also mirror across the y-axis and the z-axis as well. You're going to see all this is doing is adding a mirror modifier and just kind of adjusting the different settings in here whenever you run a mirror. Very simple stuff. Now let's say you didn't want to affect the mirror in the stack and you want to add on a brand new mirror modifier. Many situations in which you'd want to do this, most of which will be presented in the course as we go through it. But if you want to add a new modifier on top of the existing one, you press Alt-X and then there's a drop down here and there's an option for new modifier. When it says modifier, it means mirror, so that's all it's saying. So you can add a new mirror modifier that way if you'd like. There's some other settings in here too I'd like to discuss. So modifier and new modifier you'll use a lot. Modifier and apply I never really touch. This does exactly what it says. It adds a mirror modifier and then applies it at the same time. So if I remove this one and use a modifier and apply, what it does is it applies a mirror modifier but then applies it in the stack. Now there's also another option here which does the exact same thing as that mirror modifier. It requires the geo to already exist. So in this case, this is physical geometry I can access, right? So you could also run a symmetry. You go here to symmetry, and that basically does the same thing as modifier and apply. It just flips it to the other side and applies the mirror modifier. Difference here is that if this side isn't selected, or if this side is selected, this side won't be selected after the symmetry. Let me show you what I mean. So say I had, I don't know, I was trying to mirror this to the other end. If I run a modifier and apply, you can see, actually I need to select this first. If I have this selected and then I run a modifier and apply, you're going to see this side selected. But if I have this side selected and run a symmetry instead, this side will not be selected. That's the main difference I've picked up over the time using HardOps. Most of the time you'll just be running symmetry. I never really touch modifier and apply, but if for some reason you wanted your mirrors to stay selected in edit mode, you can use modifier and apply for that. Bisect and modifier and bisect I never really touch, but it does just what you think. It can bisect it and then apply the modifier, like so, or it can bisect it and just leave the modifier in the stack. I never really touch those, and we won't be touching them in the course either. So just a quick rundown for what we just discussed. Let me go ahead and start back where we were before, where we just have this generic piece. So first thing is the mirror modifier. It adds a mirror modifier and keeps it live in the stack, meaning we can't actually access the geometry on this side until we apply that mirror modifier. Next we have our new modifier option, which just adds an additional mirror modifier over the existing one. So we have one mirror modifier here. If I don't change it to new modifier and just run another one, all it does is tick on the settings in the same mirror modifier we're working with, whereas if I go to new modifier, it applies a new physical modifier here. And then the last one we'll use most of the time is the symmetry option. So symmetry, if we press Alt-X and then apply symmetry, it basically runs a mirror and then applies it all at once. So now we also have access to the geo here to move around, and it's not live in the stack. The modifier has been applied. Now another cool thing you can do is mirror over objects. So let's say I had a cube in here and I had a cylinder over here somewhere, and I wanted to mirror this cylinder over the cube. All you do is you shift click on the cube itself, press Alt X, and then just run a mirror, and you're going to see it mirrors it over this cube. So you can do all sorts of tricks like that as well. Just a lot easier than having to add a mirror manually and then choose the mirror object manually. I'd rather just be able to click one, shift click the other, and then run the mirror. So if any of this was confusing, don't worry, because it was for me as well. Once you get into the course and use it in a more practical manner, it'll make a lot more sense, so don't stress it.